What's going on, y'all? Thanks for checking in with Callie. Please like, subscribe if you haven't already. So, I've told you many times before, I love the Clippers upside. I love the way the Clippers are. I love their roster. I love it from top to bottom. They can add a piece or two here and there in a trade deadline, but for the most part, their roster from top to bottom is about as solid as it gets in the NBA. And to me, when you look at the Clippers, looking at last night's game, them playing the Wizards, of course, they were going to beat the Wizards. Shout out to the Clippers, definitely getting another W. Got to stack all the W's we can. But I feel like the Dallas Mavericks, looking at the Clippers, have got to be kicking themselves. I mean, basically, one team's loss really is showing up to be another team's treasure. Because when you look at Derrick Jones Jr., he had 19 and 8 last night. But when you look at his upside, what he brings to the Clippers, his athleticism, his defense, he can knock down a three-pointer. He's not the greatest three-point shooter, but his shot has gotten better over the years since he's entered the league. Because when he first entered the league, he was all dunking. Only thing he did was dunk. He really couldn't shoot a lick. He couldn't shoot at all. He was pretty much all athleticism, dunking, and he did provide a little bit of defense when he came in the league, but he really wasn't more of a well-rounded defensive player that he is now. He's way better. He's a way better defender now than what he was when he first came in the league, of course. So when you look at his development and how he's improved pretty much like every year, little by little under the radar, the Dallas Mavericks really wish they probably had Derrick Jones Jr. right now. I mean, they honestly probably think they should have just gave him a blank check and let him write his price on it. Because, I mean, the way he's playing for the Clippers, he may not have a lot of big scoring nights, but when you look at his impact, he is somebody that really can, put this defense over the top, especially when they get to the playoffs in a 7-game series where he can actually take pressure off of Kawhi to guard the team's best player. Because, the one thing a lot of people glorified Paul George for when he was there was the fact that he can guard the opposing team's best player and present a challenge defensively to take a little bit of pressure off Kawhi. The only problem was he stayed as injured about as much as Kawhi Leonard, maybe not as much, but he stayed injured as well, and he really wasn't reliable in the playoffs at all. But see, in this situation, it's so much more better because when you think about Derrick Jones Jr., he's not looked at as a scorer. He's not looked at to be a scorer anytime he steps on the floor. That's not what he is. He's looked at as basically somewhat a 3-and-D guy now that he can shoot better than what he did a few years ago. And he's basically looked at as a defensive prowess in general with athleticism. And with that being said, you got to look at his upside. His upside is if he ever strikes more offense in his game or adds more offense in his game, which it looks like that's what he's doing the more and more he plays under Ty Lue and the way the Clippers play. You add that with his defense and his athleticism, he is going to be a problem for teams in the playoffs because when you think about the Dallas Mavericks last year, he was a big part of the reason why their defense was the way it was and how good they were able to switch off rotations defensively and be able to get back on defense and still recover even though they might have got beat off a double team or got beat off a trap or maybe a screen set. I mean, it's just when you look at what he's providing for the Clippers, the Dallas Mavericks are kicking themselves because it's like if they had somebody like him there still, they wouldn't have a worse record than the Clippers. Now, don't get me wrong. They got 21 losses and the Clippers got 19 losses. Right now, the Clippers are in the 6th seed. I think they're in the 7th seed. So, it's not like they're looking up to the Clippers much. But when you think about them, the Dallas Mavericks adding Klay Thompson, and everybody and all the hype around them this offseason or this past offseason, they shouldn't be in the 6th, 7th seed. They should be in the 3rd, 4th seed. Now, I know Luka's been injured. Kyrie's been in and out, things like that. But even still, the games that they've played, which hasn't been many, they still should have a good enough team to be, I'd say, top 5 in the West the whole time, pretty much throughout the season. Because when we looked at them last year in the playoffs and when they went to the finals, it looked like they was a well-balanced team. But losing a player like Derrick Jones Jr. takes away a lot of their momentum on defense because, like I said, he is a perimeter defender. And the fact that he can knock down a shot as well and he could shoot maybe 35, 40%, I'd say about 32 to 35%, from the three-point line throughout throughout the season, that's a decent shooter with athleticism and defense. I mean, he's almost like he's basically a younger Nicholas Batum, which is, on the Clippers now, and he's still playing at a pretty decent level to be his age. But that's exactly what Derrick Jones Jr. is like, except with more athleticism, because Nico was more of a locked in, dead on shooter back in his day with Portland, and the years he's been in the league, he's always been that, and he's always been an excellent 3-and-D guy, and that's exactly what I think Derrick Jones Jr. has become. And for the Clippers, he is going to be even better than what he is as the season goes on, because you're going to see more from him. And I definitely think he's one of those pieces that Kawhi Leonard looks at and says, wow, yeah, he is a very, very valuable piece. Because as I said before, when they get into the playoffs, when they start playing better teams, better competition, however you want to look at it, Kawhi won't have to be asked to guard the best player the whole game pretty much and drop 30 plus points a game with somebody like Derrick Jones Jr. because he can actually guard the opposing team's best player. Can't stop them, but he can bother them with his length. He can bother them with his defense. And matter of fact, if the opposing best player tries to go around Derrick Jones Jr. and go to the paint, now you got Zubac in there waiting, and you got Kawhi waiting in the seams, basically waiting to disrupt anything that happens. So I mean, it basically makes their defense very, very stout when you have a player like Derrick Jones Jr., who is basically all defensively inclined, which is the reason why Dallas Mavericks defense is suffering, because he was a big part of the reason why their defense was at an elite level, which propelled them to get to the finals, along with Luka and Kyrie and everything as well. But still, and I feel like Dallas lost that a little bit of their defensive identity, which is the reason why they're so vulnerable to a lot of teams now. And the Clippers have gained a defensive identity, even though they already had Kawhi Leonard and his expertise on both ends of the floor. You're taking more pressure off Kawhi, his knees, his ankle, his leg, his body, whatever you want to say, when you added a player like Derrick Jones Jr. And I feel like he is a perfect fit for the Clippers. So I definitely think they ought to, ride him as much as they can, get the best out of him, develop him more offensively if they can, get his confidence up more offensively. And by the playoffs, if this team is healthy with somebody like him and all the other defensive players that they have, or all the other pieces that they have that does play defense, along with Kawhi, and James Harden is giving you 10 assists a game, and Norman Powell can drop 20, 25 a game, along with Kawhi being able to drop 20, 25 a game, it's going to be tough for somebody, whoever plays him.